Hey guys, today I'm out here in the mountains of Idaho. It's pretty cold. It's April 12th, but I wanted to take a break from what I was doing for a few minutes and just give you a little review on what I think of the Suzuki King Quad. I've had three of them so far, a 2014, 2017, and now the 2019. All of them have been the power steering models. All of them have been really great bikes. So one of the reasons I chose the King Quad over a Yamaha Grizzly or a Can-Am or a Polaris was just the value and the reliability that you get. I know that the Yamaha is as reliable or maybe even more reliable. People really say that they are. I've never owned one, but I know that they're great bikes. In fact, I think some of the features on the Suzuki, the four-wheel drive system, is almost like a knockoff or a copy. I'm not sure who was first with it, but to me it doesn't matter. It's just a great system, and it has the four-wheel drive, the high and the low, and then it's got a diff lock where you just move a switch on the throttle side of the handlebars, and that'll lock the front diff also. So it's a great feature. The reason I like the Suzuki's and the Yamahas over some of the other bikes is the belt engagement and just how smooth it is. There's no lag, there's no jerk. It doesn't have to load up and then engage right off idle. It's engaged, and it is just super smooth, real predictable. And to me, that's really important when you're in nasty terrain. You're rock crawling and getting back in some really rough country. I don't like when you start to give it throttle and it doesn't do anything, and then it engages and lurches up over a boulder. That can get you into real trouble, and I've seen more of that with the Polaris especially. I haven't had a lot of experience with a Can-Am with a CVT. I had one of the original Can-Ams in the Trackster. It was just a geared transmission with 5 gears, a high and a low range, so actually 10 different gear ratios. That bike was awesome, but just too heavy, not enough power in my mind, and I just had a few issues with it. But as far as a CVT transmission goes, I think those that you find on the Yamaha and the Suzuki are about as good as you can get. Of the 3 bikes I've owned, I've never had one problem with a belt. This one here is a 19, and I've got 1,550 miles on it. I've done nothing but change the oil. I've changed the fluid in the differentials, but I've had no issues whatsoever. So, and I didn't have any problems with my 17 until we crashed it. We totaled it. It met a tree head on. So that one, had that issue. But my 14, no issues at all. I had about 2,000 on that one when I sold it. But I tell you, these bikes are fantastic. Another reason I chose the Suzuki over the Yamaha is the incentives that Suzuki offers. Right now, since this stupid pandemic, there's been nothing. They're not hardly offering anything. But in normal times, from year to year, the Suzukis would end up offering a cash back incentives up to $1,400 I got on one of them. And when you do that, it gets a $10,000 machine down to where it's a lot more affordable. I found with the Yamaha, they never do as aggressive incentive program as the Suzukis do on their King Quads. And that might be because they don't need to. Maybe they sell every one they make and they don't need to do that. But Suzuki will offer from time to time between $1,200 off and $1,400 off, depending on the year model and the time of year and their inventories. They'll do that, and then they'll also offer 5-year interest-free financing, so 0% for 5 years. If you did need to finance a machine, that might be a way to go. When you do that, though, you have to pick one or the other. So a lot of guys will go ahead and take the cash back and then just find some low-interest financing, and then usually you're ahead of game if you do it that way. I'll share with you a few things that I really don't like about the Suzuki. Maybe we'll start with that, and then I'll get into the some of the other things that I really do like. I hate the shifter right here. You've got to go back and forth and up and down, and it's just crazy the way you got to do to get, especially when you're on a trail and you're trying to reverse, and you have to do a 3-point turn or whatever like that. It takes a long time to sit there and do that. And I just feel like it's kind of crazy the way you have to go through there. I've seen on the Yamaha, the shifter gate is better. Also, the Suzuki doesn't have park on the transmission. That's another thing that the Yamaha has that the Suzuki doesn't, that I think is a really good feature, to actually lock it up in a park position. This has a great emergency brake, and I've never had a problem. You just pull this back. So a minute ago I was trying to show you how you do the brake, and I ended up cutting the video off on accident. But basically, the parking brake, even though you don't have a park position in the transmission, the parking brake is really good, and it's not going to cause you any problem. I've left it even on some steep downgrades. I've been a little worried to do it, but I've never had any problem. It's never moved at all. I just would like that for trailering, and for parking it and leaving it, I would prefer if I had the park. The other thing is, I mentioned how much of a pain this is. If any of you know, I saw one time on a review, somebody found a gate, shifting gate that was altered, that just had all the cogs on one side. So you did have to pull it out, move it back, and lock it in, but you didn't have to go over and back and over and back. So if you happen to know where you can get one of those, I'm looking, and so please put it down in the comments or below so that I can find that, and anybody else too. So a couple other things that the Yamaha kind of has, and I guess you're hearing this a lot. I'm comparing this bike to the Yamaha in a lot of ways, and I think they're similar machines, so that's probably why I'm settling in on that. When I mentioned about the belt engagement and how smooth it is, it's a given that a geared transmission, like on a Honda or other bikes that are that way, where you're just shifting, or it has, this Honda has several different kinds of transmissions, you're not going to have any problem with a belt. I'm talking the CVT transmissions. So the Suzuki, Yamaha have that. Polaris, for the most part, I think does. The Can-Ams, a lot of the bikes have gone to that, and I really think it's a good way to go. In most cases, it's awesome, but sometimes in real technical riding, I've been kind of freaked out by the way some of them have that lag, and then they load up and then they lurch. So I don't like that. But again, you'll find I'm going to compare Yamaha to the Suzuki a lot in this review. But Yamaha comes right from the factory with a real heavy-duty bumper in the front, especially on that Grizzly. I can't remember on the back if they have a bumper, but they've got something on the front. This has really nothing to speak of. So had I had a bumper when we crashed the 17, maybe it wouldn't have had an issue there, or maybe it would have protected it some, but the way it was, it just folded that front end in. There's no protection out there at all. You can get the bike with what they call the rugged package, which for an additional cost, I think it's in the $500 range, comes with a front and a rear bumper. The new ones on the 19 and newer, or maybe it's not 19 and newer, on the newest ones with the rugged package and the SE edition, they've also added a light bar up there, which is kind of nice. It's a pretty decent light bar on the front, give you a little extra lighting. Anyway, but the bumpers are a big deal to me. I'm going to have to do it aftermarket because it didn't come with it. So that's a feature I don't like that well. One of the things that bugs me the most about this bike is the size of the racks. It has a little tiny rack on the front. It's tubular. It's good quality. It's tubular steel. I like it. It's got a matte finish black paint on it. It seems to be pretty resilient. I've never had any issues with it, really. It's just too darn small. Same thing on the back. Back here, I ended up building a rack for it. We do some backcountry fishing trips and hunting that requires us to take a whole bunch of garbage, or at least I do take it. I take tons of stuff, and without a rack like this, you just really can't get all the stuff that you need in with the factory racks that come with the Suzuki. The Yamahas have bigger racks. I like them better, so that's a win for the Yamaha there. One other thing about the 19 that I don't really like, they made an adjustment and they took the ignition switch. It used to be right here up on the top, right under the instrument cluster. And on that switch, you've got the off position, then on, and then on with the low or the front lights in the grill. And then the last one turns on that top light up there. And that's how it was on all the older ones. Now they've moved it down. It's over here. You can't see it, and I'm on ice. I'm going to fall if I try to go over there, but right down over there is where the ignition switch is. It's just harder when you're riding and you want to quickly flip that third light up here on or off. It's kind of a pain. I liked the location of the other one better. The 2019, they changed quite a bit on it as opposed to the, the years before that. The look of it's completely different. And actually the construction of it is too. The plastic in the fenders, to me, is noticeably thicker and it's more angular in shape. Has a cool look to it. It's got this new, it's got like a carbon fiber look, and the black plastic that's up over here where your air cleaner is. It's still, they did maintain where you can check the oil without removing any panels. I like that. My 14, you had to remove the panel, take some of those little pins out, pull that side cover off, and then to check the oil. That was the dumbest thing ever. So on my 14, just if any of you have one that's 14 or older, I think they actually changed it with the 16 model, so it's probably 16 and down. That's when they finally cut the plastic away where you can get to the oil fill and the dipstick there. So, but the panel to a 16 went right on my 14, so I just ordered one, stuck it on. It made it a lot easier to check the oil and maintain the bike. So I would suggest that. Another thing on the 19s that are different than the earlier models is they went to a steel wheel. So these are the wheels actually off of my 2014. They're a painted aluminum or anodized aluminum. I don't know what you call it, but they're lighter, they look better, and they don't chip up as much when the rocks are flying around as you're riding in gravel roads and things. So I like them a lot better. So I pulled them off of the 14 before I sold it and put the ones from the 19 on the 14. They're just steel wheels. I don't know why they did that, maybe just to cut costs, but I like the aluminum wheels better that are on the 18 and down. Couple other changes on the 19s. They put that extra storage you can see just to the left of the muffler. It's a pretty good size storage box. I put toe strap in there and some other things. It's got the one that used to be on the other bikes just to the left of that. You can also look and see there's a receiver hitch that they added in there, so you don't have to, you can just use your regular 2-inch receiver. I like that. I think that's a good feature. Trying to think of what else. I mentioned how they relocated the switch for the ignition, and you can kind of see it there now that I'm kind of walking around the bike a little bit. You can see where it is. It's down a bit, and in order to get it, you're taking your hand off the throttle way down, and you've pretty much got to stop to do it. Whereas when it was right up there on the instrument cluster, you could take your left hand off and you could keep your speed and keep driving and just switch that center headlight up on the handlebars on or off. Also, I mentioned the 4-wheel drive system. Now you can get a better look at it. So this is what it looks like, and it's real similar to the Yamahas. So basically you push in the red button here to activate the 4-wheel drive, and then if you want to go to diff lock, then you slide this switch up and that'll lock the front differential so that it will not slip. So I've almost never used that feature on any one of my Suzukis. I think it's good insurance to have and to know that you can do that if you want to. So I would much prefer, having it than not having it. To be honest, the bike without it does real well. Let me look and see what else we got. Oh, I'm seeing the shocks up under there, so maybe I'll just tell you about that for a minute. So these bikes, they apparently changed the suspension out on it a bit and put some, I don't know if they're heavier duty or if they just adjusted the settings in them, but the suspension is notably stiffer on this 2019. My other two rode a lot smoother. So you can see the tires I've got on here are the Maxxis 2.0 Bighorns. So when I bought this bike, at the dealership, they told me, I was asking what tires I ought to get, and they recommended the Sedona Ripsaws, and the guy said they wear real well, and to me that's a big deal. I want to get good life out of the tires, and so I went with his recommendation. They're awesome looking. So I got those, and on my first ride right out of the gate, I started realizing, holy cow, this bike rides a lot stiffer. So I wasn't sure what was going on. So what I did is I went, and I'm gonna put this back on the tripod for a minute, guys. So I went and aired it down a little bit and took it down to where I felt I'd still be, safe and not knock a tire off the bead. But man, it was just ridiculously stiff. And so I started finding that I don't like this at all. So I didn't remember the other bikes riding that way, and I thought maybe it's the tire, because the sidewall was so stiff on it. So I aired them down more, and they weren't even hardly bulging. As you air it down, usually the sidewall starts sticking out. And so I left it on for a while, and I just thought, man, this bike rides stiff. And that's when I got the bright idea. At the time I had the 14. So I took and these wheels and tires were on the 14. So I pulled them off of there and slapped them on this one. Made a world of difference, and I kept it there. So in the future, I'm gonna buy the Bighorns. These are the 2.0s. My salesman, when I bought the 17, told me to get the 2.0. Said they're lighter, really a good tire. But since then, I've changed my mind. I'd rather have the original Maxxis Bighorn. I think it's built a little tougher. The tread is a little deeper. It'll probably wear even longer, and I don't care if it is a little bit heavier. To me, I like the heavy duty. I like it to wear long. So I don't know if I mentioned yet, but this bike has 1,550 miles on it. These are the tires that I had on my 17 originally. I don't remember how many miles I put on that before we crashed it, but it was quite a bit. And then I had it on the 14 for quite some time, and now all of the 1,550 miles are on this, and I ride it sometimes through the neighborhood on the asphalt, and I can't believe how well they wear. I used to use the Carlisle tires on my Can-Am. It was a full-time four-wheel drive, really heavy bike, and I think that one, maybe it was just harder on them, but I went through 3 or 4 sets on that. Ended up with 5,000 miles on the bike, and but boy, they were bald each time I had to trade them out. I've got 1,500 miles on this bike alone, and they still look like they'll go that much more. I mean, I'm super impressed with them. So when I do buy new ones, I'll probably go and get the Maxxis, the standard Bighorn, the original. The rubber compound, I think, was just quite a bit different. The rip saws compared to these. When we ride them around, we get a lot of ice and snow in southeast Idaho where I live. And so during the winter months, I don't use this to plow snow or anything. I have a snow blower, but I do want to run it frequently. So every time we get a good snowstorm, I'll get it out and we kind of play around in the neighborhood to run fuel through it and just keep the battery charged and just keep the bike running. And we noticed a big difference. We'd go out with the 14 with those rip saws on it. It was just really squirrely on the ice and on the snow, where this one, you could still, drift around a turn and have fun that way, but it definitely hooked up better. The rip saws, I think, maybe the rubber compound just too hard for that kind of thing. I'm sure they'll wear long. I put quite a few miles on those too. And when I sold the 2014, they still look new. So those might even wear better, but I prefer the ride, how smooth and how long these wear, and just the way they perform off-road. So definitely recommend the Maxxis Bighorns. The other thing about the rip saws I didn't like is, man, the tread was wide enough that it would just grab rocks like crazy and then throw them out of there as you're going. And so I don't know, these don't do that nearly as much. The rip saws were real prone to that, so I didn't like that either about those. While I'm thinking about it, there's another thing I do like on the Grizzly. It doesn't have a lot of storage really. This probably has as much, but I like the center storage that it has right here on the top, just to put some things. And I've heard it can get kind of hot in there, so you don't want to put anything sensitive electronics or anything in there, because it does. It's right over the head of the motor. Gets some heat, but I just like that location for some things when you're riding and you just want to grab something out. I like how easy it is, and it's pretty spacious. So I wish the Suzuki had that too. A couple other changes on the 2019 when they introduced the new model. They changed the instrument cluster. It's 1,000 times better. It's bright, it's big, it's easy to read, it's got a lot of features on it. I really like that. The readout on this one's just a lot easier to see. It's just a lot better than the old ones. On the Yamaha, I do like, I think you can see, I'm not sure if it's RPM, or there was a few things on the Yamaha instrument cluster that I liked better. As far as the features of it, the look and feel and ease of using it, I think this one's as good or better. They did change a few things structurally on this bike as opposed to the older model Suzukis. Apparently they reinforced the frame. I think the diameter of the tubes in the frame is bigger than what it was in the older models, and so it's more rigid and more stout and probably will last longer that way. I never had a problem with the other ones, but that's what I've heard about this. In the engine, they put an oil jet somehow. I'm not a mechanic, but the basic premise of it is that it's supposed to help with cooling and lubrication, and the oil jet is up underneath the piston, and so the old bikes didn't have that. This one does. One of the big things that they were kind of advertising was that the power steering would be better on this than the old models. I, to be honest, haven't noticed that. On the Suzuki in general, it's not that great. I mean, the power steering works. I wouldn't have it without it, because they say the handling characteristics of the bikes with the power steering is much better. It's less twitchy in the front end at higher speeds. It also helps when you hit rocks. I mean, it's definitely, you notice that it's there, but it's not like the Can-Am that has 3 settings, and the Polaris, you can turn it with one hand, it's no problem. These aren't like that. I don't think the Yamaha really is either. If I could, I would have it be a little bit more, but not much. I really like the way that it functions. And there's the rear brake on the Suzuki King Quad's always been kind of a mixed bag for me, a love-hate type of thing. I love it because it's an enclosed brake system. It's supposed to be good for the life of the vehicle. You never have to maintain it, change pads or anything like that. It's enclosed in a little system right back there, and you don't have to mess with it, so it's no maintenance, but it's a little soft. You know, a lot of people that want to ride more aggressively than maybe I do, they choose the Yamaha because it's got the 4-wheel disc brakes, and you know, the Suzuki and the Yamaha both have, you know, you can do the front or the rear brake, and independently, where a lot of the other bikes nowadays just have one handle. Some people like that. I don't. I like to be able to control a front brake for some applications, and in other cases I want that rear brake. But they say that the Yamaha probably has a better feel on that rear brake, but they also say that the pads on those tend to wear pretty quickly, and that you're doing more maintenance on them. And if you get wet, mud, and rocks and garbage like that in there, it could impact you. So the enclosed, maintenance-free Suzuki rear brake, although it's not super, you know, fantastic as far as the feel, it does stop you, and it is maintenance-free. And so the overall fit and finish, I would give the nod to the Suzuki. A lot of the Yamahas that I looked at just didn't seem to be, where the instrument cluster is and the headlights and where all the plastic seams come together. They seem loose and open, and I don't like that. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll just pull this camera off here for a minute. But on the Suzuki, it's really nice. I mean, basically up here you can get a look, but where these seams come together, there's no voids, no gaps. Everything is just really nicely done. There's no weird gaps between the headlight and the actual plastic. Everything is just honestly really sharp looking, put together well, and I haven't had one issue as far as a quality like that goes on the Suzuki, and for that matter on any of the Suzukis that I've had. they're just put together nice. My 2014, when I sold it, like I say, it had probably almost 2,000 miles. People would say, do you ever take this thing off-road? Because it just looks so good still. I mean, I do kind of baby them. I wash them and get up underneath the fender wells and clean them all out. But what I'm talking about is nothing starts to rattle free, shake loose. They look like the way they did when I bought them. Even after this one, like I said, I've got 1,500 miles. A lot of those miles is on some real difficult terrain, and the bike still has no rattles, squeaks, or issues. Well, all right, that does it, I guess, for my longer term review of this bike. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm getting colder by the minute. The wind is blowing. It's probably messing with the audio anyway. But anyway, thanks for joining me for this. If you have questions or comments, please put them down below, and like and subscribe to the channel too. Just kind of doing this. I do all kind of outdoor stuff. ATVs are a big thing for me, so I like those. I kind of dive into the details and share with you what I've learned through experience. We also do a lot of hunting in Idaho and Arizona, and so we'll share those videos with you too. Just kind of new to this, so be kind. I'm still learning the ins and outs of doing all this, but appreciate you joining us. Have a good one. All right, guys, I'm done with my little review. Had a little fun out here. Starting to snow a little bit, and I'm cold, so I'm gonna get out of here. Anyway, we'll go for a little ride and see how she drives. Still quite a bit of snow. It's April 12th, right? About 20 degrees feels like to me. It was 28 in Ammon, and I'm out here a good bit from home in the mountains, but a bit colder.